Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I am talking about Echinacea, aka the coneflower that is a member of the daisy family and also the black-eyed Susan family. Today I'm going to tell you everything that I know about it, so let's get started. Now, I've told you guys before that I am not some scientific plant identifier, so I don't know how to correctly describe the leaves of the echinacea plant, but in my opinion they're long and they're deep green. Okay, and they have those long lines in the middle. Yeah, I have to get better at plant descriptions, but what I can say is that the inside of that flower is there's a big spiny spiky head, and the flower petals kind of collect around that head, the pink flower petals. So maybe that's good enough for you guys, I guess. As you can see, this plant is pretty tall. It's about 5 feet tall, and they get about 5 feet tall, and they can be as short as a foot or two tall, and I can show you guys an example of that. But in general, they get about 5 feet tall and about 2 feet wide. As you can see, it's much taller than it is wider. Here's an example of what the flowers look like before they're about to bloom. This spiny, they kind of feel like plastic a little bit. They have a unique texture. Echinacea is a perennial plant that's hardy in zones 4 to 9, but sometimes 3 to 10, depending on what variety you're buying. They are very low maintenance, and I won't even waste your time with plant care. Most of my plant care is just staking these plants, and you can deadhead them. I don't think you need to deadhead them, but if you do deadhead them, you'll likely get more vigorous blooming. So the bloom time is from spring, they say summer to fall, but I noticed that these bloomed in springtime. So I guess it really depends. I'm in zone 7, so in zone 7, expect to see some blooms in late spring. I started these from seed, and if you go online and you search how to start echinacea from seed, it might seem a little bit complicated, but if I'm growing them, it's not complicated. I don't grow anything complicated. So I just put these seeds in a pot. You're supposed to stratify them, so give them a cold experience before planting them out in warm weather. I don't think I did that. You're supposed to plant them out 8 to 10 weeks ahead of time. I always miss deadlines with these plants, so I'm guaranteeing you that I didn't do that. So if you follow all the instructions that you do online, chances are you'll have better plants than I do. And I think I have some pretty great plants that I would consider low maintenance. So take everything that you read with a grain of salt, because these plants grow very vigorously without all of these, tedious tasks. Echinacea also don't like being planted in soggy areas. So nice, dry or well-drained soil. Doesn't have to be dry, but they are drought tolerant. Just make sure they're not soggy. One thing I saw online is that if you plant them too late, or if you don't plant them like 2 months before the last frost, you will likely not get blooms on the first year. And I couldn't remember. I didn't think I got blooms on the first year, but when I was looking back at my photos from last year, I saw that I actually got blooms in November of that year. So even though I didn't follow all of the instructions, I still got blooms from these things the first year. Granted, it was only for a few weeks. Okay, so I talked about how echinacea can come in different varieties. So Here's another variety that I planted last year, and I planted this one as a plant start. So this wasn't started from seed, and it's not much bigger than it was last year. It might be maybe a times two of how big it was last year. But that's because last year I had a really big yellow squash planted and it smothered this plant out. So I'm actually surprised it survived. As you can see, this variety has a double flower head. Here I go trying to be scientific again, but it's like a double flower and it's not as spiky in the center as the common variety is, but it's very pretty. This one just seems to look a little bit more ragged. Like it's supposed to look this way, but I don't know. It's just a little bit more ragged than I was expecting. Now you know enough about Echinacea to at least grow it this well. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the benefits, all of the great things, all of the reasons why people love growing Echinacea. The first main reason I grow Echinacea is because of the pollinators. When you're growing vegetables, it's very important for you to bring the pollinators to your yard. And Echinacea is one plant that does that. Butterflies, bees, and birds all benefit from Echinacea. The birds specifically when the heads dry in the fall, and it provides food for the little birdies. But the butterflies and the bees throughout the season usually are swarming this plant, and they are bringing the pollinators to the tomatoes and the cucumbers or whatever it is that you're growing. So definitely consider Echinacea as a nice low maintenance perennial plant that you can have in your garden that's going to consistently bring in those pollinators. I think I've really become friends with the bees because they are not bothered by me being near this plant and they're swarming this plant. But we're moving on to the next benefit of Echinacea, and that is the fact that it's used mostly, or it's well known, mostly for its medicinal usage. So that would be fighting cold, flu, sore throat, and generally boosting your immune system. When you're using your plant for medicinal purposes, you're typically using the root of the plant. So you're waiting to the end of the season. Once all the foliage dies back, you cut it off, which you would do anyway. But then you would dig up the roots and either make your teas or tinctures, salves, whatever you're going to make for you to use your Echinacea. It's also used for topical wounds, so you can make, the salves and all of that stuff too. So as I mentioned, I always refer to my Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine. I will link it in the description below. But that's usually how I come up with the teas and all of that all of those different things. So if you're using it medicinally, you probably aren't going to be using it wholly for flowers or for it to be a pollinator in your garden, because you're digging up the roots, which means you're digging up the plant. A good way to get around that is to dig up some roots and leave some roots for your garden. So you give it a try. Let me know what you think. By the way, I am not a doctor. So check with your doctor, your holistic professional, or do your own research so that you feel comfortable taking whatever herb it is, because you don't know what the side effects are or if it interacts with any other medication. So that's my disclaimer. The final reason I grow Echinacea is for cut flower arrangements. You can use these beautiful flowers in arrangements and they last for over a week. And you can also use them for dried arrangements. So you can actually use the cone, dry it, and it makes for an interesting bouquet, gives it some character. These you want to pick, you want to use them for the flowers. You want to pick them while the flowers are expanding. And if you're picking them for the cones, you want the cones to be nice, big, and golden brown. I'm going to go ahead and pick some for a bouquet now. Now you guys can see how beautiful Echinacea looks in a flower arrangement. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me on the Echinacea journey. If you know everything about Echinacea, you knew about it beforehand, thank you for listening to me and tolerating me. And if you learned something new, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any comments, I look forward to listening and I look forward to reading them below. Thanks, guys. Talk to you again soon. Bye.